Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you Aletoledo versus YueJin in the Community Patch Tournament. This is a tournament based on the Community Balance mod that you can find on the Steam Workshop. I've also got a link in the description for you guys if you would like to check that out. So, 6th Airborne once again for Aletoledo on the Allied side. YueJin is going to be taking out the 352nd. I really like how Aletoledo is continuing to rep the 6th Airborne. He's had a win and a loss with the division so far, but now up against a very good opponent in YueJin. Let's have a look at some of the changes to the 352nd. So, the SBW 204s, which are the Panards, have been increased in availability across the board. So you may see more of those used throughout the game. The Pack 43 in Phase C for the 352nd has been increased in veterancy. The MG42s have had their availability increase, so YueJin may be using those throughout the game. They have added a set of 81mm mortars in Phase A, which you can get 2 of. Gives them a bit more leverage when it comes to artillery and supporting those infantry engagements that the 352nd are quite reliant upon. They normally make use of cheap units in order to make the ground, supported by artillery, so that kind of continues to improve on the playstyle that the 352nd already employ. They've added a Pack 40 to Phase B. That has 2 Picard, and they are 1-star veterancy, so we're going to see some more Pack 40s. There's also the increase in veterancy for the Befehl Panzer IIIs. Now those are a tank that are quite often used with the 352nd to support infantry at close range, and adding that extra veterancy will allow them to take on enemy armor a bit better, where they have previously failed quite considerably since their base accuracy is very low. And usually what you do to sort of circumvent that is use Panzerjägers instead. So we'll have to keep an eye out to see if it changes the way in which you expect the 352nd to present themselves. There has been a few other changes as well. You can check them all out on the Community Balance mod page. And of course, the 6th Airborne we've talked about a couple times before, but I'll just go over it quickly. The main thing is that they have increased the overall availability of the Airborne elite infantry. So you're generally seeing more of those in the early game than you otherwise would, as well as some balances to their air tab and just other availability across the board to give them a little bit more stuff to throw away at the end of the day. So this is Sainte-Mère-Église. Let's have a look at what the players have actually placed down. So Aletoledo probably going to be playing for this town quite heavily. He's got a couple of flamethrowers at the front with some command. Command he did lack in the last game we saw from him, so good to see that at the start. A couple of recon squads as well, again, was lacking in the last game, so great to see that. 4 infantry squads following up with the Tetrarch Little John. On the top side, it's going to be the Vickers HMG with an infantry squad and the recon. I would expect some of these infantry squads to be going down to the bottom side just to cover that off from YueJin. Over on the side of YueJin, we are going to be seeing a couple of infantry squads. There's going to be the command at the back with the MG. There's also going to be an IG, I would assume. Another IG at the back with a machine gun. There's going to be the command and a bunch of infantry from the offset. And on the very bottom side, we see 2 IGs with the Kubel MG, a Panzerjäger, and some more infantry. So quite a heavy start in terms of like fire support units for YueJin. He's got the IGs everywhere. He's got his MGs out. And so it looks like those changes to the MG availability has sort of affected YueJin's play slightly. But let's just speed things up and get the game underway, and then we can see exactly where these units are going to end up. So I kind of expect them on the side of YueJin at least to sort of correlate with where they have started. So a bunch of units for the top side, a bunch of units for the mid, and a bunch of units for the bottom. But for Aletoledo, I expect these to split and end up kind of going to the mid and bottom side. But here we go. Let's just have a quick look at these orders. That's the general spread of things on YueJin's side and on Aletoledo. Either he's going to be fast moving and then using unload at position commands in order to move up to the tree lines. A rather large investment into the town early on. IG has been unloaded on the main road, but look at the amount of Stosstroop here. They're going to absolutely annihilate both of the flamethrower squads. That was 4 Stosstroop just unloaded right into the face of Aletoledo. Now, it doesn't look like they're going to fare too well against the airborne paras, but getting rid of those flamethrower squads is very, very nice, as it basically means that the cover that the Stosstroop would use is not being flamed out. But they're still going to die pretty quickly, and that's 2 Stosstroop squads down. IG takes position on the top side. Grenadiers going to be moving into position up there. On the bottom, IG now engaging. Both of these IGs can take care of pretty much anything that Aletoledo can throw at him at this phase. Only things like Tetrarch CSs might be able to stop an IG, but even then, IGs do have a pretty good chance to pin a Tetrarch CS. So the 3-inch mortar is going to have to try and clean these up so that this infantry doesn't just get annihilated as it did. Also, the snipers could help out actually, but doesn't necessarily want to reveal itself to the Panzerjäger. So the 3-inch mortar actually going to end up firing some rounds towards the MG42, completely ineffective. Pathfinder's also being shot down to 1 man, but a relatively even start across the board. It's generally expected that this very bottom side will be relinquished to the red player, since the way that the roads work. The blue player would be very exposed if they had an infantry in this area. So now Eugen's going to be bringing in a mortar of his own, and that's going to help him clean up the opposing mortar, but also remove this tank from cover and allow the Panzerjäger to get a decent engagement, because at the moment the Tetrarch, with the help of the mortar, could take out the Panzerjäger quite easily. And one thing we've got to keep an eye on as well is the infantry engagements in the centre. Stosstroop and airborne paras camping very close close to each other in the town. And so balancing on a knife edge here, any aggression from either player will cause some death. I think what Eugen's doing here is he's purposefully keeping the Stosstroop outside of the building so they don't engage the airborne paras, but if these airborne paras decide to jump out of their building, he'll jump in with the Stosstroop and mow them down in the street. That's kind of how he's planning to do that there. The Grenadier, they've come up, they're going to be giving the Stosstroop the extra veterancy. 3-inch mortar is now targeting the IG-18s to try and clear those up, but with the 120mm mortar on the field, that will be able to counter battery quite nicely. There is now another unit coming in onto the top side here. Looks like another mortar. And Eugen's just looking for ways to break down the defenses of Aletoledo in the early game, since it's not looking too great so far. But wow, airborne paras have been actually allowed to move up, and Stosstroop caught out outside of the building. 2 more Stosstroop squads go down. Grenadier have been revealed as they use their Kar 98s, and I think what's going to end up happening here is Aletoledo should be able to get almost full control of this centre town, and Eugen will be forced to start pushing around it, cover off the buildings with IGs. You can see he's got this trifecta of IGs just kind of covering all angles of the town. But that will allow him to put more investment into maybe some armor and his artillery and push around on the top or bottom side. It's kind of a plan that I would expect Eugen to execute, unless he goes for a more direct approach and uses something like a Nebelwerfer in order to pin down these units and then drive in there with a unit that can potentially surrender. But with the investment into the Panzerjägers, it kind of tells me that YueJin is going to want to try and use the open ground a bit more, since Panzerjägers are not usually the tank of choice for close range engagements. So Grenadiers, they're going to be engaging the Ox and Bucks and Airborne Bren group. Airborne Bren group are going to suffer to these Grenadiers, since the Bren groups struggle to pin down squads, whereas the MGs that the Grenadiers have do not. But nice mortar fire there is going to force the Grenadiers to fall back. The positioning of the Grandführer, though, preventing a surrender for now. Aletoledo, though, could definitely use some command on this top side, since his Bren group and the Ox and Bucks are very close to being pinned down. And if the Grenadiers get within 100 meter range when they are pinned down, they will find themselves surrendered. And that is not a place they want to be in. 120mm mortar is taking shots at the 3-inch mortar. It looks like it was counter-batteried itself, as these 120mm mortars have actually been deployed pretty damn close to the front line. Considering they have 1,600 meter range, I am actually very surprised how far up YueJin has placed them, because you really don't want to be in range of these 3-inch mortars, and you don't actually have to be. So, yeah, I am surprised. Either way, IG is going to be able to find a shot onto the Ox and Bucks, pinning those. Bren group have forced the Grenadiers to fall back, but now we're going to be seeing the 120mm mortar still continue to hit the 3-inch mortar, whilst the Panzerjäger hits the Bren group. And well, those are going to be continued to pin down to the point where eventually the infantry will end up surrendered. Panzerjäger actually gets a really nice shot there onto the command Tetrarch, which is going to make it fall back into the line of sight of the other Panzerjäger that's sitting on this bottom side. And removing that Tetrarch will allow him to be a bit more aggressive towards the Ox and Bucks here, and maybe take some land on the bottom side that will give him some points, because neither player so far has actually made any points in the game. The Feldpanzer III is on its way. You can see that there with its extra veterancy that it never used to have. It allows that 4 accuracy on the main gun to be a little bit more consistent. MG42, though, arriving, is going to slam those infantry squads in the orchard. Now, the other good thing about this Panzer III is that it can be the unit that YueJin needs in order to surrender this infantry. But honestly, these Grenadiers just running across the open could also do it themselves. On the bottom side, again, another infantry squad is going to get surrendered. IG-18s engaged that infantry, as it probably revealed itself to the Grenadiers. And then the Grenadiers just took that land. Meanwhile, on the top side, here go the Grandführer. Going to be finding the pin onto the Airborne Bren group. Surrender one of them. Going to be wanting to surrender the second. Airborne Vickers, that's going to be smoked off by the 120mm mortar. Nicely done. Give the Grenadiers in the open a little bit of respite. So YueJin slowly but surely breaking down these defences. Kind of relinquishing the town after his Stosstroop didn't do very well at all. And this is just a really nice change of tactics here for YueJin. I like the way that he smashed those flamethrowers early on, but it seemed like due to the amount that Aletoledo invested into the town early on, that YueJin was going to very much struggle to contest that until maybe phase B, where he gets access to his Ersatztruppen, which can, with artillery, try and push back through the town. But for now, that's the last of the Airborne Bren groups gone. The Ox and Bucks gets taken out. Another MG has been brought in, but this 3-inch mortar very close to the front line. If the Grenadiers get into these tree lines, that 3-inch mortar could be in trouble. It looks like it's moved up actually to counter battery the 120mm mortar. Again, something that shouldn't really happen since it has 1,600 meter range. But YueJin very content with having them there, continuing to counter battery the mortar on the bottom side. But these Bren group and the Vickers now engaging Grenadiers. IG-18s are not in line of sight yet, so no support for the Grenadiers just yet, and the Panzerjäger has used up all of its HE ammunition. Now going to be engaging the Tetrarch though. Driver wound is a nice start for the Panzerjägers, and with the strafing run from the ME-109, I would not be surprised to see the Panzerjäger get the kill. With the driver wound, it looks like the Panzerjäger should have a final shot, is not going to take it, and ends up firing at the Airborne Paras instead in order to unload those. But now this Panzer III getting very ambitious on the top side, going to smash this airborne because the mortar has also been taken out, and things are looking awfully ropey for Aletoledo on the top side. He's going to have to reinforce that sooner than later with some form of armor or AT supported by infantry. So here comes the Cromwell 5. That's what we want to see. That can take the road past this orchard and potentially deal with the Panzer III. But with no more command on this top side, that's going to be 2 airborne paras being surrendered. And just like in the last game where I pointed out his lack of command, it's coming to bite him in this one. A more experienced player like YueJin definitely knows how to take advantage of that, and that's opened up a +2 on the map for YueJin. Now, one trouble with using Tetrarch Little Johns against the Panzerjägers in this case is that Tetrarch Little Johns can't engage until they are in with 800 meter range, whereas the Panzerjägers have 1000 meter range. So if you're playing well here, like YueJin is, and using sort of multiple line of sights with the Panzerjägers, you can force an engagement with the Tetrarch before it gets close. If there was only one Panzerjäger, then you could obviously push it up close to the tree line, pop out and shoot within range. But in this case, you saw the Tetrarch was just completely ineffective. And that's a lot of wasted points for Aletoledo, since those Tetrarch Little Johns aren't really that cheap. So it looks like Aletoledo in trouble. Yes, he controls the town, but he does not control the top or bottom side, which YueJin has so far convincingly put a lot of pressure on. Now Opel Blitz munition coming in for the 120mm mortar on the bottom side. He's also going to be bringing in a Stug 3, and that is going to make things difficult, but it is currently fast moving past these Pathfinders, and if the Pathfinders get a cheeky kill onto the Stug 3, that would be very nice indeed, and might sort of take away the momentum that YueJin currently has moving into Phase B. So, Cromwell 5, it has a lot of weight on its shoulders. It definitely needs to make a lot of ground at this point. You know, killing off the Panzer III, killing off the Panzerjäger. That's really the job of this Cromwell 5, but it needs command in order to be effective. And currently I am not seeing that. So I am very worried that the Cromwell 5 will end up losing to a Panzer III, which is not something you want to see at all. Also, the Pathfinders missed the opportunity to get the Gammon Bomb onto the Stug 3. I think personally I probably would have gone for that if I had noticed it, since that would have been a really nice kill. 150 points down the drain for YueJin is over a minute's worth of income. IG going to be getting more shots onto the Airborne Bren group as they reveal themselves to the Grenadier. That Grenadier on its own, sitting there, poor chap. And now we're into Phase B. Well, YueJin's going to be trying the town again. He's brought in some Grenadier to accompany the Pioneers, and the Pioneers are going to manage to use one of their 20 HE power grenades to wipe out an Airborne Para squad. Stug 3 allowed to get into an ideal location to engage the Cromwell 5 at max range. This could be very costly for Aletoledo if he lets that continue. That's 6 accuracy from that Stug. It's not going to miss too often after it's shot a bunch of times. Now the Panzerjäger come around the corner. That's going to make the Cromwell 5 fall back, and now this Panzer 3 just going to be continuing to push through. That's a driver wound. Panzerjäger does have a decent amount of AP at this range. That is at least 12 AP versus a 7 front armor. Only a matter of time until the Panzerjäger actually penetrates. Very lucky so far that it hasn't died. So another unit of Pioneers coming into the center. Aletoledo's hold on the town is going to be slowly but surely broken down. And YueJin's position only gets stronger. But now we're going to be seeing a Cromwell 5 on the bottom side. Can that kill off the Panzerjäger? If it does, that would be very, very nice indeed. But it looks like instead it's going to be trying to focus on the IG, potentially. If he can just force the Panzerjäger back for now, then the IG would not be a bad shout. I mean, here we see another unit being pinned. Airborne Paras, Grenadiers just going to be running towards those, maybe finding a surrender. Whilst the Pioneers continue in the center. YueJin just putting on pressure across the entire map now. Do Panzerjägers engage in the Cromwell 5 on the bottom side? We see the infantry engagements in the mid, and then the push on the top. Tempest here comes in to engage the ME-109 G0, not going to be successful in doing so, as there are 2 Flak 36s on the side of YueJin, and the ME-109 G0 will find the kill, which is not something you want to see. Tempests are very much more expensive, so Aletoledo investing into that aircraft and losing it at this point is not a good thing. It puts him in a very, very tough position, and the Pioneers finding kills onto airborne paras without any micro on the side of Aletoledo is like very lazy. It's something that you always want to do. If you see a Pioneer squad engaging your infantry, make sure you jump out the building as they throw the grenade. You can see if they've thrown it because they'll be reloading, and then jump back in after it blows up, because that way it doesn't actually damage your squad. It might cause you a little bit of morale penalties, but generally it will save you the squad rather than losing them. But at the moment, it looks like YueJin has the upper hand, and Aletoledo thinks so too, and does surrender in 15 minutes and 57 seconds. YueJin's pushes there were absolutely relentless towards the end, and you can see that the kill death throughout the game certainly showed that YueJin was dominating. 935 kills to 185 losses, and what was a game that started very, very slowly, ramped up very quickly in favour of YueJin after a few tactical kills, and especially the arrival of those 120mm mortars opened up the front, and the sort of choices that YueJin could make, sort of counter-battering the 3-inch mortars was really good. Took those out of commission, allowed YueJin to play around his infantry a lot more alongside the Panzerjägers, where he had lost out in the town. So it allowed him to kind of bounce back from the loss of Stoss Troop, and that was pretty much his major loss at the start of this game, was the airborne paras just chewing up the Stoss Troop. The sniper there taking out an Avklaller, but Cromwell 5 taking out a Grenadier, and the mortar taking out an IG, and that's pretty much it. Pathfinder's taking out a Grenadier there. In terms of losses though for Aletoledo, these IGs went to town. They really did a lot of damage, and it made things very difficult for Aletoledo. The sort of concentration of mortar fire onto those IGs I don't believe was enough, but really good job of YueJin to get the 120mm mortars in. This was very important. I am, however, very surprised that YueJin unloaded them so close to the front line when he had the 1600 meter range to work with. So yeah, there you go. Pretty cut and dry game from YueJin. Some really solid tactics in the more open ground on the top and bottom of the town. Wait until phase B, when he used Pioneers to take back the town. So not quite the ersatz troop and slaughter that I hope for, but hopefully an enjoyable one for you guys. Make sure to check out the community balance mod, guys, on the Steam Workshop if you are interested in any of the changes and the intentions of the mod. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.